Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. This week, we've seen interdimensional tea leaf readings, addictive renouncements, and malicious moonshiners. But we're going to kick things off this week with Absolute Martian Manhunter number 5, written by Dennis Camp with artwork by Javier Rodriguez. This issue felt like it all revolved around shadows, the shadows that we carry around with each other, the shadows that we carry around for each other, and giving into the dark temptations of those shadows. Javier Rodriguez is doing a great job at the approach of the notion of this story, which is again the baggage that we all carry, and sometimes the intrusive thoughts that take hold. Next up, we have Absolute Wonder Woman number 10, written by Kelly Thompson with artwork by Hayden Sherman. What I love about this entire series and this issue in particular is that Circe's compassion for Diana and Diana's compassion, therefore, stemming from Circe, her compassion for everything is like the mantra. It's the heartbeat of this series, and it just like makes you melt. I love seeing Diana's interaction and the way that she perceives every single thing and every single being around her and how that influences every action that she takes. I really enjoyed the exchange between about Diana's upbringing in this. I think it speaks a lot to the quality of her character, and it goes to show the reason why she is taking the actions within this maze that she's taking, and how she is going to be moving forward with this, and kind of giving trust to the fact that she's going to be there and she's going to come back for the Minotaur character as well. She lives up to her promises. Speaking of promises, Hayden Sherman delivers on the promise of delivering absolutely stunning visuals in this book as well. It's great how he can deliver great emotion for these characters and actually childlike looking children characters as well, which seems like it should be easy. It is absolutely not. And I've seen people fall face first trying to attempt to do that. Sherman does not. So kudos to him. Absolute Wonder Woman continues to be the best book of the Absolute line. With our next issue, we have Captain Planet and the Planeteers number 2, written by David Papos with artwork by Iman Casalios. So Papos is really honoring kind of the nature of this whole story and the nature of this being a cartoon and kind of like the purpose behind everything, but he's not beholden to the tone. And I think that's where the success lies with these first couple issues. It is giving a grounded nature to the story that doesn't necessarily deserve to be grounded, knowing that it was a very heavy-handed, very child-centric cartoon that was taking place. But it's trying to be a little bit more than that. The ring bearers have a reason to showcase their powers and show some of their personality, and it rings true for everything that's happening throughout the story so far. We've now seen them all come together. We see the greater idea of Captain Planet himself, and it seems so weird to talk about this as a resonant thing, but it really is. If there was a critique on this issue that I have, I feel like the colors on it leave everything feeling a bit flat and a bit, I don't know, mediocre isn't the right word, but it's the first word that comes to mind. I think that there's a way to elevate the artwork in this, and the colors are the first thing that come to mind. Outside of that, though, I do think that this is building, and this was a really good issue. Next up, we have Department of Truth number 32, written by James Tynan with artwork by Letizia Cardenisi. There's some story development here, and we are provided some, I don't know, intrigue behind our character that we're following here, and the nature of the kind of like the mythos of this Reddit type character that has now seeped its way into the greater populace and has now become part of reality. But I have to say, taking a sidestep from our main storyline and from our main characters who we just spent a lot of time with feels like it was a very big misstep. I don't like what's happening. I don't like taking a step away from that. And in doing so, this also feels like it's a disservice to this side story as well. We do get a little bit of interconnectivity between that main story and this one that we're dealing with, but it just kind of doesn't feel like there's a lot of meaning behind it. And without meaning, it doesn't give me any reason to actually want to come back to this. The artwork is really good, though. I really do like Leticia's approach on here, and I feel like there's, I don't know, a different approach on this than what we get from Martin Simmons before, and I think that's refreshing and appreciated. But there's also not a lot of room for fun or for excitement in this issue, and I feel like that's where it falls flat from that artistic approach. Overall, in regard to the issues that we've gotten from Department of Truth, this is probably one of my least favorite. All right, let's talk Geiger number 16, written by Jeff Johns with artwork by Iman Wrinkle. So we have to talk about the fact that Gary Frank is generally on this book in most issues, and without Frank, the book feels way more cartoony and way more comic booky looking. And that's not a bad thing necessarily, but I feel like the book loses on a little bit of the emotionality and the humanity that Gary Frank brings to each one of these characters. That's really the heartbeat of this storyline, is like feeling the tragic notions of all these characters and the growth that they get from that. It's a very introspective issue that we get to spend with Dr. Molotov, and it's like mostly driven by his narrative as he tries to reconcile the journeys that he's been on with Tariq and with Ash Arden and the wrongs that he's trying to right now. It's all, I mean, that's really what the story is all about, is righting the wrongs of the past and trying to forge a new path. And then with that, there's a beauty to it. It was setting things up, though. This was a very it feels like a middle chapter or an in-between chapter kind of issue. So it was the right issue for Gary Frank to take a break on, but I'm excited to see kind of where they go from here, knowing what we already know and kind of broadening out the landscape of Geiger. All right, let's talk Iron Man number 10, written by Spencer Ackerman with artwork by Guy Villeneuve. So this is a somewhat thinly veiled look at how you can become the thing that you hate. That's what the mantra of this little arc has been, and this is actually the last chapter of Spencer Ackerman's time on Iron Man, and I think it wraps it up kind of nicely as we get to see Tony take on the character that he's brought up and prompted to be the person that was going to take on Doom and really kind of put an end to the One World Under Doom storyline. It's a decent closing chapter, but it feels very modern Marvel, which is to say, it doesn't feel like there's a lot of meaning behind it and thought behind it. It just kind of feels like we're there to wrap it up, but not wrap it up in the way that the event wants to, what the way the series is dictating it's going to be wrapping up. I feel like there's a lot of lost potential, and it didn't have enough runway to actually get a good story going here. I think that there was some good things that Spencer did on the title here, but there was not enough time and not enough runway for him to get the kind of story going that he probably intended on doing, considering that 99% of it was done under the guise of being tie-ins for an event. So it is what it is. It feels kind of like Marvel right now, modern Marvel, but we have that to deal with. So moving on. With our next issue, we have Lost Fantasy number 3, written by Kurt Pierres with artwork by Luca Casalegüeda. It's a grounded and matter-of-fact kind of issue, and I really dig that. In fact, I dig that about the series so far, being that it's a balance of fantasy and crime. We've gotten our main character who's been influenced by this earworm, basically, kind of like the Star Trek-y kind of thing that we've seen in the past, and his friends and his companions need to help him kind of gain control over his body, his emotions, so they can continue investigating the case of this murder, or this attempted murder, if you will, within the real world. We get a lot of intrigue as well. There's a balancing act that's happening here, just like the crime and fantasy. There's a balancing act of the storylines on Earth and in the underrealm, the fantastical world where some of these beings come from. And we get to see a lot of intrigue about kind of what's happening and what machinations are taking place between the powers that be in that fantasy world and the investigators who come from that world but are here to protect Earth as it is. A lot of cool stuff happening, gritty textured artwork by Casalegüeda that kind of delivers on that notion of the balancing act between crime and fantasy. And I think he's doing so in a really great way. So Lost Fantasy, I think, has gotten better with each and every issue. Next up, we have Minor Arcana number 9, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Leticia Catalisi. So we talked about Leticia previously on Department of Truth, and I feel like her artwork really shines in this series more so than the Department of Truth, just because she's given more to work with. This is like the most expansive issue that we've gotten of Minor Arcana, both narratively and artistically. It really builds without rushing the storyline forward, but we get a lot more ideas and a lot more playfulness, if you will, about the power set of our main character and how she's actually tapping into being able to go into this, dream realm, if you will, while also kind of being able to perceive like the thoughts and the feelings of these dead individuals and help the city. Everything is kind of coalescing right now, though. Everyone in her vicinity is going to have to be dealing with some kind of tragic thing that's happening, and it's all kind of stemming from the actions that she's taking. But I think that's a really cool thing. That's the way that it's pushing the narrative forward without actually pushing the plot forward, if that makes sense. So I think this is a really cool issue. It delivered a lot of the things that I needed for this series. So hopefully you're feeling the same way if you read this. If you did, let me know in the comments down below. Next up, we have The Seasons #6, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Paul Azaceta. So what we're learning here is that time moves differently in the carnival as Spring tries to get safe and get free, and also try to like maybe help her parents and her sisters who have been manipulated here. Things don't necessarily go as planned though, but we see now that there's a manipulation that happens here where you can spend a little bit of time in the real world and a lot of time passes in the carnival and vice versa. One of the other cool things that we get to see here is it's not just the carnival's manipulation of everything that's going on, but Gilbert, arguably the best character in this storyline, the goldfish, and the goldfish that Spring owns, is speaking to her and becomes this huge monstrosity that helps her actually escape the carnival's clutches. I think it's really cool. I like the idea that they're playing with the magical ideas there. Also, the temptation. You could tell that Spring and all the sisters here have a reason to want to buy into this notion here, but Spring doesn't allow herself to be manipulated in that way. So it's really cool. I really hope to see the entire family kind of get brought back together here, but I think that we're going to see Winter come back in a big bad way. Time will tell in future issues though. All right, let's talk Storm #10, written by Miraway Ayodele with artwork by Lucas Wernick. The funny thing about the series is that I feel like it's lighthearted in a way that still allows there to be like some big ideas that are explored, but also gives enough breathing room for you to have those moments of relief when you get away from the idea of Storm being like the herald of a cosmic being and her power set being incredibly, like boosted up, and also not being in control of her body like all of the time. The secondary characters work really, really well, with both Maggot being one of the main characters who becomes like a pivotal part in this series. Also, Manifold here being able to kind of like live within the structure that Storm has for herself. Wernick is delivering some really cool things here as well. I think that the way that they're kind of like conveying all these characters works really well. However, where his artwork is very beautiful, it's also very stiff, and sometimes those action scenes feel stagnant where they should feel really kinetic and bold. So we're missing a little bit of that. However, the storyline here with Storm actually like having a pocket universe that's, kind of developed here to hold prisoners was really cool, and I think is delivering some really cool ideas to further this character who is already almighty, but seeing her be tested and get a boost in powers is very cool. Next up, we have Superman #29, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Dan Mora. So Dan Mora is back after taking a couple issues off, and I gotta say, his storytelling is just superb. It really, really elevates Williamson's narrative that he's delivering here, which is all really about the far-flung future and kind of Superman reflecting on his time being with the Legion of Superheroes, where he learned a lot about being a superhero, but also in that way brought that same idea back and had the weight of responsibility on his shoulders to be the thing that the Legion was built upon, which was like kind of looking to him as the archetypal superhero, which in fact is true because he's basically the very first superhero to ever come into existence in our real world right here. Williamson is like interweaving a lot of the Time Trapper storyline as well, which is really fantastic considering his interactions with the Legion. And now we're kind of building, and he's really using a lot of the past pinpoints of the storyline to really make this feel fresh and bold. It feels integral to what DC is doing right now, which is really fantastic. DC is killing it. Superman feels like the flagship title of everything that is going to be happening within DC All In Year 2. Definitely get on the ride for this one because it's going to be worth it. Next up, we have Vanishing Point #3, written by Mark Russell with artwork by Alberto Ponticelli. I've really enjoyed every single issue of this series. It hasn't necessarily delivered on the emotional weight that I feel like I associate with works of Mark Russell. However, this is an anthology series, so it's a one issue thing. You're in, you're out, you have to tell a storyline. And I think he does that really successfully here. And I think this is actually the best issue of the series that we've gotten so far. It's really talking about the the evolutionary byproducts as a result of unchecked curiosity. So it's about these people that are investigating different worlds and kind of forcing evolutionary things to take place, like the High Evolutionary in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies or just in the Marvel universe as is. And it's kind of speaking towards those kind of ideas where one of these people or one of these creatures escapes, and it's kind of just toying with the ideas of what that means. What is unchecked curiosity? It's a lot like what Ian Malcolm is talking about in Jurassic Park. If you've seen it, you know. The artwork is really good on this. I feel like it pops in a way that the other issues didn't, where some of them, particularly issue number 2, were very in line with a cartoony approach. This one felt like it was in line with the story that it was telling, which is very appreciated. A lot of anthologies can fall flat when it comes to that. This issue did not. So Vanishing Point number 3, it was pretty darn good. Next up, we have The Voice Said Kill number 1, written by Cy Spurrier with artwork by Vanessa Del Rey. So I'm a fan of Cy Spurrier's work. In fact, some of his books are like some of my favorite, and he has a way of interjecting language into his works that like really make the book, I don't know, feel lived in and feel unique. And this definitely does that. But I have to admit, sometimes it is a chore. And sometimes happens in this book. Some of the verbosity and the way that things are said, while feeling natural, also feels like a lot to take in. And this is an extra-sized issue. Del Rey's artwork kind of feels the same way to me. It's, I don't know, it's good and it fits the tone of the story, which is to say that it's gritty. There's a textured feel to the inks, particularly on this book, and it is crime driven. However, I feel like it's just, I don't know, it's either not enough, it's not enough of one aspect, and I can't quite put my finger on what that is. The story all revolves around basically a wildlife conservationist that is working with moonshiners as a way to basically smuggle product into the city and into the township. And things go awry, and she's kind of tasked with finding one of the sons of these moonshiners, and it doesn't work out in the best possible way. So there's interest there, and it builds on a couple different ideas, but I feel like especially with an extra size issue, it does more world building and character development than plot delivery, so it doesn't deliver on the hook that really makes me want to come back for this. Time will tell. I'm definitely going to be along for the ride. However, this one as an introductory issue kind of fell flat. With my runner-up pick of the week, let's talk Green Arrow number 26, written by Chris Condon with artwork by Montos. So I love what Chris Condon is doing here because there's a lot of great emotional resonance that we get with these characters. It's leaning on moments of the past and also making them feel very modern. It's kind of ringing true to the classic notion of the comic books that Green Arrow is famous for, particularly his ward Speedy being hooked on drugs, and now after decades long, at least in our real lives here reading the character, he's kicked that habit. He's in a very good place, but it still weighs heavy on Green Arrow, Oliver Queen's character, and we can see that big time in this issue. I feel like the emotional resonance behind that, not just in the narrative, but what Montos is delivering with the way that these, you see the weight on the characters' faces and you see the worry as, Roy Harper is sitting in the hospital bed. It really, really rings true. Green Arrow is building on its like independence from the greater DC universe, and it's not weighed down by crossovers. It's telling this very introspective story that still branches out to the other external characters within Green Arrow's family. However, it's not beholden to those characters. This is Oliver Queen's story, and we're seeing how he's influenced by each and every one of their interactions. This is going to be awesome. It continues to kind of get better and better with each issue. This is the grounded, gritty kind of superhero story that I've been looking for. Green Arrow number 26 absolutely delivered. And with my top comic of the week, let's talk Kaya number 28, written and drawn by Wes Craig. In a series that I talk about exhaustively, I have to say this is arguably the best issue of this series so far. The last few arcs have all been about Razel and Kaya and Jin and their journey and their distrust for one another, but also the building of, I guess, I don't know, the mission statement and kind of like the building of the character relationships themselves. And it's kind of built to this boiling point. We're in this pressure cooker of emotions. And in this point, it's all spilled over. We know that they're here to save the slaves that have been kind of enslaved by the Atrians, who have already been like established as the big bad, basically, for Kaya and Jin. And now they're taking the fight directly to them by freeing these prisoners. But in doing so, Kaya still lets her emotions boil over. She still lets them get the best of her. Maybe, possibly, or it could just be that she has a better judge of character than anyone else within this series. But you can tell the emotional manipulation that's taking place is done so in a masterful way, because every single time that Kaya makes a decision, she has questioned herself more and more and more. And it's done so in ways that you know would definitely influence not just her, but if you were in her shoes, it would probably influence you as well. Kaya just keeps building on these ideas, and it's done so in a great way. Wes Craig is drawing all these things in a pitch perfect way. His narrative and his visuals just work together in such a great way, and it's like it's the best part about having a one sole creator kind of overseeing every single thing about a book. It's what's making it special. It's what's making it unique, and it's really what's kind of like delivering this to be one of the top comics, not only of this week, but of this year and maybe this decade. So, Kaya number 28 was absolutely worthy of top comic of the week. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you next week.